Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we're going to go through a hadith, a very important hadith. It is known as the hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. This hadith, in it is the farewell advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He gave a farewell advice, as you'll see from the context of the hadith, and in it are mentioned 4 things. These things are extremely important. These are the farewell advices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These 4 things, when a person at the beginning, when he writes a book or when he gives a speech, he mentions that which is the most important thing at the beginning and also at the end, because he wants to grab your attention at the beginning, and at the end he wants to leave you with the most important elements of that which he wanted to communicate to you. In this hadith we find that the Prophet ﷺ is leaving us a summary of the most important advices that we need to hold on to after him ﷺ. Does that make sense? The hadith is narrated in the Sunnah of Imam At-Tirmidhi, of Imam Abu Dawood and Imam Ibn Majah. So from the Sunan al-Arba'a, from the 4 books of hadith outside of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, all of them narrated it except for Sunan al-Nasa'i. Nasa'i was the only one who didn't narrate it. Does that make sense? Without any further ado, let's go into the hadith. Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, what does he say? He said, وَعَظَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave us a reminder. موعظة, it was a موعظة. وجلت منها القلوب. It's something that made our hearts tremble. وظرفت منها العيون, and it made our eyes swell up with tears. We cried. Our eyes, it poured out tears. Does that make sense? Pay attention. What is a موعظة? We're going to stand over the wordings of the ahadith as we go along. A موعظة is a reminder in which a person tells you to do a particular command or to stay away from a particular prohibition. Remember, the Sharia, when Allah Azza wa Jalla wants you to do something, He's either commanding you or He's doing what? He's prohibiting you. It's either a command or it's a prohibition. Now, if you just tell the person, do this, don't do this, that's not a موعظة. That's not a موعظة. A موعظة is when you tell him, akhi, pray. But then you package that reminder by urging him to pray, by seeking the reward, and also by reminding him to stay away, by reminding him of the consequences if he doesn't pray. So it's by instilling a person with hope and want to do the action, and also fear in them not doing the action. Does that make sense? So this is a reminder that's emotional. It touches the heart. Does that make sense? So the Prophet ﷺ said, موعظة, and it was baligha, it was eloquent. It touched the hearts, it got to them right where it needed to hit them. Such that ذرفت منها العيون, the eyes, they began crying. And وجلت منها القلوب, the hearts, that part was mentioned before the eyes, the heart, they started to tremble out of fear. Does that make sense? The Sahaba, when they heard this, they said, فَقُلْنَا, we said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, كَأَنَّهَا مَوْعِظَةُ مُوَدِّعٍ. This is, you're giving us a reminder as if it's a farewell reminder. The way you're talking to us is like a person, he's about to leave, and he just given us everything that he has. He's given us those last, important things that we need to stick and hold by. It's like you're giving us that kind of reminder where you're about to leave, Ya Rasulullah. فَأَوْصِنَا. They said, based on that, advise us, counsel us, give us a wasiyah. A wasiyah is not just, a basic advice. It's something that is big, and it's done for a big reason. What you're saying is big. What you're saying is big. The advice here that you're giving is big, and it's for a big reason. It's for a big occasion. Does that make sense? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Usikum bi taqwallah." 4 things he advises. Number 1, he said, I advise you to have taqwa of Allah, which loosely translated, fear of Allah, and we'll come back to it in a second. The second thing, وَالسَّمْعِ وَالطَّاعَةِ, I command you to hear and obey. Who? Your leader. If there is a leader that's put above you and he's a Muslim, then you must hear and obey him. The third thing, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, upon you is my sunnah. Hold firm to the sunnah. Don't let go of my sunnah. Okay? And then the Prophet explains that a bit. Then the last thing was, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْمُحْدَثَاتُ الْأُمُورِ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he warned the people to stay, Assalamu alaikum, he warned the people to stay away from the newly invented matters. These are things that are newly invented, they are not part of the religion, they have no basis in the religion. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, be warned of them, stay away from them. Why? Because each newly invented matter is a misguidance, and each misguidance will take you where? It will take you to the hellfire. So these are the 4 usul, these are the 4 principles that the Prophet ﷺ left us behind with. Number 1, fear Allah, have taqwa of Allah. Number 2, obey the ruler, hear and obey him. Number 3, hold on to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, don't let go. Number 4, stay away from bid'ah, which is the opposite of sunnah. Does that make sense? These 4 things, we're going to go into the wording of the hadith, understand them to some foundational, basic degree, really what it is that these 4 things are. With a bit of an explanation here. When the Prophet ﷺ said, "Usikum bi taqwa Allah." What is taqwa? What is taqwa Allah? At-taqwa is an Arabic word which comes from the word wiqaya. Wiqaya means to take a shield. Does that make sense? So, what is it that you're taking a shield against? It's to protect yourself from something, right? When someone in battle pulls out a shield, why are they pulling out a shield? It's because they're scared they might receive harm. That's why some people translate taqwa to fear of Allah. Like, it's more than fear. Fear is a part. It's a part of the definition of taqwa, but not the entirety. So I'm scared, so I'm putting up my shield. Like in taqwa is the shield itself. The shield is brought out because you're scared. Now, what is it that the shield is protecting you from? From Allah's punishment, and Allah's displeasure, and Allah's anger. That's why they say it's fear of Allah. It's more than that. So, taqwa is to pull out a shield to protect yourself from the anger of Allah, from the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. Question, what is the shield? The shield is ittiba' khitab ash-shar'. It is that you obey and you follow what the Sharia tells you to do. What Allah and His Messenger tell you to do. Okay? When you obey Allah by doing what He told you to do and staying away from what He told you not to do, that is your protection from Allah's punishment. Allah will protect you from His punishment if you obey Him in what He commanded you to do and you stay away from what He prohibited you and said don't go near it. So the shield is obedience. Ittiba' khitab ashar. It is to obey, it is to follow what the Sharia tells you to do. Does that make sense? So every time I pray my salah, I took my shield out because I've done a command. Every time I fast, the obligation, I took my shield out. I protected myself there. Every time a woman walks by and I lower my gaze, what did I do? I took my shield out because I implemented a direct order which was to stay away from a particular prohibition. Does that make sense? Every time an opportunity comes to do some haram and you stay away, you just pulled your shield out. You had an opportunity to be hit right there by Allah's punishment. You quickly protected yourself by staying away from that haram. Quickly there was an opportunity coming. Salah time came in. You could have got struck. You could have got hit by Allah's punishment. But suddenly you prayed, so you protected yourself from the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. Does that make sense? Now the taqwa has levels. It has levels. The first level is that you do all of the wajibat, all of the obligatory things that Allah commanded you to do. And you stay away from all the mahdurat, all of the prohibited things. You stay away from the zina and the ghiba and the uquq al-walidain, disrespecting your parents, and you stay away from all of these things. But then there's a level higher, which is what? It's that you don't just do the obligation and stay away from the haram. You do even the recommended and you stay away from that which is disliked. So you do that which is mustahab, and you stay away from that which is makruh. You do that which is sunnah, and you stay away from that which is disliked. Does that make sense? So for example, now a man who starts praying his sunnah, he starts fasting Monday and Thursday. He starts doing his dhikr after Fajr in the morning and after Asr at night. He starts praying Qiyamul Layl. He doesn't just wait for the annual zakat, like, and he gives sadaqah. And he looks for every opportunity to give sadaqah. It could be a smile in the face of his brother. It could be helping someone get inside of their car. It could be walking towards the masjid. These are things that are not wajib upon you and me. Does that make sense? Lakin, this person strives to do them. And that which is makruh, he says, he treats the makruh like it's haram. He treats the makruh like it's haram, and he treats the sunnah like it's wajib. He attained a level of taqwa higher. By the way, I just want to mention here as a side point, nowadays, we look, and this is tragic, wallahi. We look at something that is sunnah, not fard, sunnah, something that's mustahab, recommended, as an opportunity to leave an action. Like in the Salaf al-Salih used to look at something, if it was sunnah, as an opportunity to do an action. What do I mean by this? For example, people ask you, you tell them, Akhi, there's a particular salah that you have to pray. Is it sunnah? Why is he asking? It's not because he's excited, I want to do more. It's because he's like, can I get away with not doing it? Is it sunnah? Barakallah fi, okay, I'm not going to do it. People ask, witr, is it sunnah? Or is it fard? It's fard. It's obligatory. Sorry. You tell me it's sunnah. It's not obligatory. He said, okay, I'm going to go sleep and I'm going to pray. This is wrong. This is wrong. The Salaf, they would ask, is this sunnah? Because they wanted to know. They want to do as much worship, but they don't want to do bid'ah. So is there an evidence for this? Is it sunnah? Okay, I want to do it. There is a narration Imam Malik mentioned is Muwatta, where a man came to Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar, companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked him a question. If I'm not mistaken, he asked him about witr. He said, is this mustahab, is it sunnah, or is it fard? And Umar said, كان فعل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أصحابه. The Prophet used to do it. Look at the way he answered it. He said the Prophet used to do it, and his companions used to do it. أو كما قال. The man asked him again, is it sunnah, is it mustahab? He said, كان فعل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet used to do it, and his companions used to do it. So do it. He's trying to make you understand it. Don't ask sunnah from the angle of, shall I leave it? Ask sunnah from the angle of, shall I do it? If the Prophet say, did the Prophet do it? Then do it. Does that make sense? Now pay attention. When is it that you don't do the sunnah? It's generally speaking, when you abandon the sunnah, it's when there is a mashaqqa. There's a difficulty. For example, on a particular day, you're running late for work, or your lunch break is running thin, so you couldn't pray your sunnah after dhuhr. So you know what you did? You just went and you just quickly, you just done your fard and you kept it moving. So it's when the opportunity is like, when the opportunity is such that it's hard to do the sunnah. Allah said, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah, He intended to make things easy, not hard. That's why He didn't make the sunnah obligatory on you. He didn't make these mustahab, recommended things rather, because the sunnah is obligatory. The word sunnah in fiqh sometimes can mean the same as recommended. Like in aqidah, sunnah means aqidah. In aqidah, sunnah actually means aqidah. Does that make sense? So not every sunnah is recommended. Some sunnah are wajib. Does that make sense? If a scholar of hadith tells you this is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, he means it's a hadith. Does that make sense? And the hadith, it could be indicating something wajib or recommended. But the scholars of fiqh use the term sunnah to sometimes be recommended, mustahab. So it's better to not even say sunnah, because it's better to just say mustahab, because I think people get confused. Because then they think, the sunnah I can abandon. So for example, you tell a guy, the beard is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, he thinks you mean is recommended and he can leave it off. No, beard is sunnah in the sense where it's a hadith of the Prophet. It's a characteristic of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? What's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? ما أضيف إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من فعل أو قول أو تقرير أو صفة. It is something that's attributed to the Prophet in terms of a statement, in terms of an action, something he consented to, or a description. So the beard is a description of the Prophet. So it's a sunnah from the angle of the scholars of Hadith, but it's not a sunnah from the angle of the scholars of fiqh. From the scholars of fiqh, the beard is what? It's wajib. In fact, some of the Salaf Salih believe that shaving the beard is like amputation. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz believed that shaving the beard is as if you cut off your hand. It's as if it was a limb that you cut off. Ibn Taymiyyah took the same view, and so did Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. So the point here is that it's not sunnah in that regard. So when I'm saying the word sunnah and I'm saying you can leave it off when there's a difficulty, I'm talking about the word sunnah, how the scholars of fiqh use it. They use it with regards to things that are mustahab, things that are recommended. Does that make sense? So, coming back to the point now. You can leave off an act of sunnah when there's difficulty in doing it. So Allah made the religion easy for you. Does that make sense? Like in a man who loves the Prophet ﷺ, he wants to be a believer, he wants to be with the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah, he wants to have his shafa'ah on the Day of Judgment, he wants to drink from his hands and from the fountain of Al-Kawthar. He's a man who will try to follow the Prophet ﷺ in everything possible, even the things that the Prophet ﷺ didn't make obligatory. It's an opportunity to get reward. Does that make sense? Like if you left the sunnah, you will not be sinful. The point is that that's a level and a stage higher when it comes to what? At-taqwa. Okay, so staying away from the makruh and doing the sunnah, doing the mustahab is a stage above for taqwa. There's a stage even higher now. Taqwa can grow even more. It's a stage even higher now. It's when you even leave off things that are permissible out of fear that it may lead to haram. You leave off things that are permissible out of fear that it may possibly lead to haram. For example, a person gets a job, and the job might be halal in and within itself, but they know this particular job is going to result in their iman decreasing, such that when their iman decreases, they'll eventually fall off deen. And unfortunately, we've seen this happen to a lot of brothers recently. They get a job. Okay, the job might not be haram in and within itself, but you might have to go to a particular place, and you might, everyone's different, right? Some people need a job, I'll give you an example. Some people have a problem when it comes to women, right? So if they're working in a job where they're not free mixing, is the job haram? No, but when you're out and about working, you may see women, right? But this person, he's got a problem with women, so he needs to be shielded and protected from the women as much as possible. So he needs to go to a job where he's not even going to come across women on a day-to-day basis. Like, he's not even going to see them walk. We're not talking about free mixing. He's not going to even see women walking past. Because he knows that for him, this is so bad that just seeing those women is enough to make his iman drop, fall into haram, and then he stops coming to the masjid. Does that make sense? So this person needs to get a job where he's only going to, when he leaves his house, and he gets a job, not only is there no free mixing, but he's not even going to see, women are not there. Like a job in construction or something. Like, do you see women? I don't know. Maybe it's some transgender woman in the construction scene nowadays. Things are getting sticky. The point is that he will leave off certain things that are what? He will leave off certain things that are halal out of fear it might lead to haram. To the point where, for example, is it haram for you to go shopping? For you to go Sainsbury's? Is it haram to go get your shopping? Or to go Tesco? Is it haram? No, it's not haram to go shopping. Like in a person who reached a high level of taqwa will say, I'm going to order it and get it delivered to the house. I'm going to order it and get it, because I'm not even going to go into that marketplace. These are levels. Does that make sense? These are levels. And a person should try this as much as possible. A person will say, look, if I hang around with these people here, am I allowed to hang around with these people? They're not sinning. Am I allowed to hang around with them? But they're not doing anything beneficial, and their company may lead to sin. So I'm not even going to go see them. Does that make sense? I'm not even going to see them. So you leave off certain things that are halal out of fear that it might lead to haram. And do you know what the highest level of taqwa is? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he mentioned the highest level of at-taqwa is that you're able to walk around the marketplace with a tray, and imagine that you could take all of your thoughts that are inside your mind and put them on display so everyone else could see them. He said, for you to be able to take your thoughts and put them on a tray and not feel any certain way about the people looking at what's really going on inside your head, that's the highest level of taqwa. Because how many of us have thoughts that are evil? How many of us have thoughts that if people knew what was going on inside of our minds and the things that we think, they wouldn't even say salam to us? So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz saying the highest level of taqwa, of piety, is what? That you even have pure thoughts. So these are the stages. But I think a lot of us struggle with the first stage, which is to even just stay away from the haram and to do the obligation. So start with that, and if you work on that, then start doing the mustahab, staying away from the makruh, and then start staying away from certain mubahat. They may lead to haram, and then just keep perfecting. The point here is to learn that don't ever think to yourself, I'm pious. Never. If at-taqwa is translated as piety, don't ever think that you're pious, because you've not reached the limit. Until you can walk around the marketplace, let people read your mind and don't have to worry about what it is that is going on inside your mind. Do you understand the point? So this is the first thing the Prophet advised before he left. Usikum bi taqwallah. The second thing, wasam'i wa ta'a, to hear and obey. Hear and obey who? Your leader, the Muslim ruler who's placed over you. What is sam'i? It means to hear. Hearing him means that you accept what he says. Ta'a means you act upon it. He tells you do this, he tells you do that. وَإِن تَأَمَّرَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَبْدٌ حَبَشِيٌّ. Even if an Abyssinian slave is placed over you. Even if an Abyssinian slave is placed over you. Is this racism? People think this is racism. It's not racism at all. The reason why the Prophet said Abyssinian slave is because he was trying to make you understand two things. Number one, a person who is a ruler of the Muslims, he can only be a free man. If he's a slave, it's haram for him to be in charge of the Muslims. He's not allowed, a slave is not allowed to be a Muslim ruler. Number two, he's not allowed to be other than Quraysh. The ruler of the Muslims has to be from Quraysh. The Khalifa has to be from Quraysh. Does that make sense? So the Prophet ﷺ, when he said Abyssinian slave, it's the same as saying Hindi slave. Right? Or Rumi slave. A Roman slave. Or an Indian slave. It's just that the Prophet ﷺ just gave them an example of a race that the people were familiar with. It wasn't out of racism putting them down to say Abyssinians cannot be rulers of the Muslims. No. Anyone who's not Qurayshi cannot be ruler of the Muslims. Does that make sense? So that's what the Prophet said, even if an Abyssinian slave is ruling over you, meaning a non-Qurayshi slave is ruling over you, still have to obey him. Now wallahi, this hadith has a very powerful, beautiful understanding in here if you ponder. Why did the Prophet mention even if he's non-Qurayshi and if he's a slave? Why? Because if it is haram for him to be in charge of the Muslims, how did he get into power? I'm asking you a question. How did he get into power? If it's haram for this man to be a ruler of the Muslims, but now he's conquered the Muslims, he's conquered the army, he runs everything, and he's not right for the job, he's not a free man, and he's not Qurayshi, yet he's in that position of power, how did he get there? What's the only way? Would the people have given it to him? Would the people have said it to him? Would he have gotten in through any appropriate means? Would he? So how did he get in there? Who can tell me?
Sin.
What kind of sin? Pardon? Forced his way in. He was what? A tyrant. He had to have done some kind of a rebellion, or some kind of, he had to have done something nuts, spilt blood, killed people, raped women perhaps, and then got into power and said, now I'm in charge. So this is not a righteous man. The Prophet is describing a situation of a man who, if he gets into power, obey him and hear him. Even if he's like that. Because you couldn't have got, and if you look in history, and you look and you see, and you look at how the leadership was taken out the hands of Quraysh, and how it was given to Adhering Quraysh, it was done through so much rebellion and bloodshed and pillaging and spilling of blood. Does that make sense? Like, and with that said, the Prophet said, hear and obey. Question, why? Should I hear and obey him even if he's oppressing me? Even if he's oppressing me? Of course. He oppressed, that's how he got in charge. Notice that there's another hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet said, إِن ضُرِبَ ظَهْرَكَ وَأُخِذَ مَالَكَ. Or كما قال, even if he strikes your back and he takes your wealth, فَاسْمَعْ, hear him, alayhi salam, and obey him. Hear him and obey him. If he strikes your back and he takes your wealth, hear him and obey him. Does that make sense? The question is why? A lot of people have an issue with regards to this issue of obeying the rulers. They say, look, if you say you obey the rulers, you're a bootlicker of the rulers, or you're a spy, or you're basically you're just there for the rulers, right? Me definitely, I'm not on no Saudi payroll. If I did, trust me, you see that Saudi money on me. You'd see it on me. But I'm not on no Saudi payroll. And I don't know why people straight away assume it's Saudi Arabia, because I'm not even from Saudi, I'm Pakistan. So they should, if anything, say I'm Pakistani bootlicker as opposed to a Saudi bootlicker, right? But anyway, the point here is that people misunderstand this issue. They don't understand why the Prophet placed so much emphasis on it. And the reason why the Prophet placed so much emphasis on it is because, you see, the Sharia has maqasid, has objectives. From the objectives of the Sharia is 5 things. The Sharia came to protect 5 things. And every hukum in the Sharia is somehow going back to one of these 5 things, is protecting one of these 5 things. Number 1, your religion. Number 2, your life. Number 3, your wealth. Number 4, your honor and lineage. Number 5, your mind. Shirk was made haram because it affects your deen. Killing was made haram because it affects lives. Stealing was made haram. Riba was made haram because it affects your wealth. Zina was made haram. Why? Because it affects your honor and your lineage. Alcohol was made haram. Why? Intoxicants were made haram because it affects your sanity, your mind. Does that make sense? All of the ahkam in the Sharia, somehow, some way, they come back and they navigate and they circulate around these 5 things. Now, if you rebel against a Muslim ruler, even if he's a tyrant, you rebel against him, what's he going to do? If he's a tyrant, by virtue of the fact that he's tyrannical and he's oppressive, he's not giving up his seat, right? So if you try to take it away from him by force, or you start protesting against him, and he starts to get scared, thinking they're going to take my seat away, they're going to overthrow me, how's he going to react? You tell me, what's going to happen? Say that again? He's going to be oppressive. And that situation, is it going to affect people's deen? Is it going to affect people's deen? Straight away it's going to affect people's deen. You look at countries like Egypt, for example, where people are scared to even go to the masjid. Brothers will go to Egypt and they'll say to you, I can't hang around in the masjid for too long. If you sit in the masjid, you do a dhikr after Fajr for too long, just start thinking, what are you on? Because they create an environment that became anti-Islamic. Does that make sense? The governments, the governments become scared. How is this person going to react? How are people going to react? And the people who rebel against them, they always use Islam. Notice this. They don't use dunya as a way to overthrow them. They always try to justify overthrowing the ruler from Islam. So then the ruler sees it as Islam is the problem. So he starts to make people's religion hard, number 1. Number 2, he kills people. He kills people. He orders people to be killed. He orders people to be killed. He orders people to what? To be imprisoned. People's wealth is taken away. Right? What happened? Number 4, people are raped. Women, look at this. What happened in Syria? And even though Bashar al-Assad is a kafir, he's not a Muslim. He's a kafir. Even when it comes to a kafir ruler, even though you're allowed to overthrow him, but there's a condition, which is you have to have ability to overthrow him. And the Muslims in Syria never had the ability to overthrow him, so they shouldn't have tried. But now, in America, there was an article that was released about Syrian refugee women that are now having to prostitute to live. So what happened to their honor? What happened to their honor? Our sisters are now having to become prostitutes so that they can live. Why? Because people went against the ruler and they created such a situation. Not just that, people's minds. People get mental torture. People lose it. Does that make sense? So, when you go against the ruler, all of the things that the Sharia came to protect, they all become at stake. So some people will argue, but the ruler is already bad. He's already killing people. He's already what? He's already making people's deen hard. He's oppressive. He's already doing these things. We say, and if you try to overthrow him, he's going to do worse. We say, أخف الضررين, the lesser of 2 evils is better. Sometimes you can't remove the complete evil. You can't remove the complete evil. But it's better to take the lesser of the 2. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, one time he saw a Mongolian soldier who was drunk. And the Mongolians had now accepted Islam, but their Islam was a bit funny. And they were still killing Muslims. Does that make sense? So the Ibn Taymiyyah students, he said to him, he said, Sheikh, are you not going to prohibit him, stop him from doing this? Because Ibn Taymiyyah was known for what? Al-amru bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy anil munkar. He was known for commanding the good and forbidding the evil. Ibn Taymiyyah said, no, leave him. It's better that he's drunk. Why? Because if he sobers up, he's going to start killing Muslims. He's going to start stealing from Muslims. So he understood, even though it's evil for a man to be drinking, it's better for this man to be drinking. You know why? Because if he becomes sober, he's going to do something which is a greater evil, which is spill blood. Does that make sense? So sometimes pacifying the evil, even though it's evil, pacifying the evil, meaning allowing the evil to stay and just limit it, is better than allowing it to go big. If you look at every Muslim country where they rebelled, name me one Muslim country that they rebelled ever in history, and something better came. Ibn Taymiyyah said, never in history did the people ever rebel against a ruler and they brought about the change that they wanted. It always was worse. Even amongst the kuffar. We're in the Bolsheviks revolution that took place, what? In Russia. He brought about what? Stalin, who was worse than the Tsars that were there before them. Does that make sense? Always the people who come after are going to be worse than the people who were there before. If you do it through revolting. Look at Egypt. Look at Libya. Look at Tunisia. Look at Yemen. Look at Syria. Look everywhere they tried and they did it. It brought about worse. Women were raped. Women were slaughtered. Men were raped. Men were slaughtered. Children were raped. Children were slaughtered. What happened? And still till today, people, what they say? They say what? They're still not happy. They want more countries to be destroyed. They want people in Saudi Arabia to revolt against the rulers in Saudi Arabia, so there can be bloodshed in Saudi Arabia, so people can't go do Hajj. And they will not be stopped, and they will not become satisfied, and they will not realize the error of their ways until they see people start being raped and killed outside the Kaaba, and that's what they want. That's why they keep talking about it, that's why they keep encouraging it. So any groups that you see, whatever they be, Hizb al-Tahrir, and whatever these groups are, fear Allah Azza wa Jalla with regards to their agendas, which is all about overthrowing the ruler. They say, they want to bring a ruler, but it's all about bringing a ruler by overthrowing another ruler. Like in our Sharia, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't go to the leadership and try to change it from the top. He changed it from the bottom. Remember, the next ruler that comes in, the next general of the army that comes in, the next minister that comes in that governs from wherever it governs in a Muslim country, will come from one of the houses in that Muslim country, right? So does it not make sense that you fix the houses in the Muslim country? Does it not make sense that you fix the houses in the Muslim country? Because then the next ruler who comes will come from their house. Does that make sense? That you fix the parents, you fix the children, you fix the communities, you fix the neighborhoods, you get the parents to start being on deen and teaching the kids to be on deen, and then through that you rectify the houses. Then once you've rectified the houses, the next leader that comes is going to be what? That's what the Prophet did. He rectified the houses in Mecca, Medina and the Arabian Peninsula. And look at the leaders who came after him, Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali and Hassan, Hatta Muawiyah. And even those that came after them, they were not as great and amazing as those who came before, and some of them did tyranny. They were still better than those that came after them, but they weren't from Islamic households. They were from some kind of Islamic household, so the evil was going to be less, right? Does that make sense? So correct the evil in the houses, and you will correct the problem at the top. The Prophet ﷺ never went at the top. They came to him and they said to him, "What do you want, Muhammad? Do you want leadership? We'll make you our leader. We'll make you our leader. You can be our leader. We'll give it to you. Just stop giving your da'wah. Stop giving your da'wah." The Prophet said, even if you give the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, even though the narration is, this particular narration, this wording, is authenticity, is questioned, like the meaning is correct. If you give the sun in my right hand and you put the moon in my left, I will not stop. He didn't care. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he carried on giving da'wah to the people and the communities. Even when he became a leader in Medina, he did not send out letters to the leaders around until the 7th year in Medina. So what was he doing for 7 years? What was he doing? He's teaching his people. He's giving da'wah to his own community. Does that make sense? After the 7th year, after Hudaybiyah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what did he do? He started to send off letters to the Muqawqis in Egypt and the Qisra of Persia and Qaisar, the Roman emperor, Caesar. He started to do all this when? After when? After the 7th year. He was building people's hearts. He was correcting the houses. Does that make sense? So these people, they always want to take a shortcut. They want to go to the top and they want to take the leadership down from there, but in his own house, what? His sister's got a boyfriend, his sister's coming home high, he probably himself is addicted to pornography or some nonsense like that, he doesn't want to fix his own house, but he wants to fix the country. Allah, idiots, man. Allah musta'an. It's just some, these, and you know what? Put what I just said in my explanation to the side. The Prophet said, if he strikes your back and he takes your wealth, fasma' out there. Hear him and obey him. Why is it that we have to talk after the Prophet? Don't tell me, but so and so scholar said you're allowed to. I don't care what scholar said you're allowed to. The Prophet said it. What are you going to say now? The Prophet said it. Don't say that, but this sheikh said and that sheikh said and this sheikh said that. The Prophet said it. I'll keep bringing you back to the Prophet's statement. What are you going to do? Stop arguing with him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Does that make sense? And this is one of the brothers, sisters, pay attention. One of the fundamental reasons why the ummah is suffering today is because the Muslims rebelled against their leaders. Wallahi, it's true. Every Muslim country that you look at, almost all of them, the problem came because of their own rebellion. A lot of them. It came because they made the problem worse on themselves. Does that make sense? A lot of the countries that you look at and you think, why is it like this? And it came because of this particular reason. Now, wallahi, you look at the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ, that out of all the things he could have, remember, because this is his farewell advice, right? These are the 4 things that he gave in his farewell advice. He chose to what? He told you, obey the ruler. Listen and obey. Why? Because it will create bloodshed, instability and corruption. It will create bloodshed, instability and corruption. I go to some countries in the Middle East, and I go to the Middle East quite regularly, and some of these countries are doing madness. I'm really scared, for the way things are going for some of these Muslim countries. It really is scary. We pray that Allah rectifies the affairs of the Muslims, man. How bad some things are happening. When I go there, you still see, regardless of however bad it is, I still have safety and security. When I'm in the UK, I have to constantly watch over my shoulder. Why? Because what? Someone might mug you or stab you or whatever have you. And there's some element of safety and security. I can go to the masjid, I can pray. It's not great. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing, man. It's better than nothing. Can I go and do that in a country like Yemen now? Why? Because of the stability is gone. So even though certain rulers in certain countries might not be Islamically perfect, and they're not, some of them might be fujar and they might be fusaq, they might be rebellious, evil people, but because they are ruling the country, there's some stability. That's why the Salaf al-Salih would say, one night with an oppressive ruler is better than 1,000 nights with no ruler. Just look at Yemen, just look at Libya, just look at our country, just look at them. Just take a look to see if that statement's a lie. So the Prophet said, he said, السمع والطاعة وإن تأمر عليكم عبد حبشي. Now, of course, if the ruler commands you to do something that is haram, you don't obey him in that. If he tells you to do haram, I'm not going to obey you in that. But just that. The same way if your mother and your father, they tell you to do haram, are you going to obey them? No, but then does that mean that the rest of their obedience is gone? You go back to obeying them straight away. Does that make sense? And everything else. Mum says shave your beard. Say, Mum, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But then straight away I bounce back to doing all of the good and obedience that she wants me to do. Even if she tells me to do something which is not fair on me, I'll do it because Mum told me to do it. As long as it's not haram, what she's saying. Does that make sense? And the same principle applies with the ruler. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, what did he say? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said, Alaykum bi sunnati, the third advice. He said, upon you is to follow my sunnah. Alaykum bi sunnati, follow my sunnah. Wa sunnati al-khulafa al-rashidin al-mahdiyin. And the sunnah of my rightly guided khulafa. Pay attention. Is that 2 sunnahs or 1 sunnah the Prophet mentioned? How many sunnahs did he just mention? He said, Alaykum bi sunnati, upon you is my sunnah and the sunnah of my rightly guided caliphs. How many sunnahs did the Prophet mention here? Who could tell me? How many sunnahs did he mention? Pardon?
Too much.
2 sunnahs?
No, too much sunnah.
Say that again?
Too much sunnah.
Too much sunnah. Yeah. Allah bari. It's never too much. But how many sunnah have been mentioned here? The Prophet's sunnah and the sunnah of his rightly guided khulafa. His rightly guided khulafa. But this is one sunnah Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala explained. That the Salaf al-Salih used to see that the sunnah of the Prophet and the sunnah of his companions to be the exact same sunnah. Why? Because Allah in the Quran, when He spoke about the path of the Prophet, He spoke about the path of the companions, He connected them and made them one path. Because they're on the same path. That's why Allah said in Surah Al-Baqarah, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. Allah said they will be guided if they believe what you believe, Muhammad, and those who are with you believe. Allah didn't say, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتَ فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. So, the Prophet, if they follow you, and they believe the way you believe, and their iman is like yours, and those who are with you, i.e. the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, then they will be guided. If you say, no, I only follow the Prophet and I don't follow the companions, you are misguided. If you go out of your way to say, I do not follow the companions, or you do not take the companions' guidance in particular issues, you are misguided. You are not guided, because you will only be guided if you follow the Prophet and those who are with him. Allah said that. Does that make sense? And there are many ayat in the Quran like that. Because time is short, I can't go into it. But the point here is that the path of the Prophet ﷺ and the path of the companions is one path. In fact, the hadith itself shows you it's one path. Because when the Prophet said, عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ, upon you is my path and the path of my rightly guided khulafa, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. The Prophet said, عَدُّ عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِبِ. Pay attention. The Prophet said, hold on to it with your molar teeth. It is one thing. He didn't say hold on to them. If the Prophet referred to if there were two separate paths, the Prophet said عَدُّ عَلَيْهِمَا. He would have said عَدُّ عَلَيْهِمَا. Hold on to them with your molar teeth. Like he said عَدُّ عَلَيْهَا. He used the singular. Hold on to it with your molar teeth. To show you the path of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and the path of his companions radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een is a path which is one path. عَدُّ عَلَيْهَا. Pay attention. The hadith mentioned khulafa al-rashidin al-mahdiyin, rightly guided khulafa. This is only four: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. What about the rest of the companions? There's another hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us all the companions and him are on the same path. The Prophet says, "Satafariqu ummati ala 73 firqa." My ummah will divide into 73 sects. Kullaha fin nar. All of them are going to be in the hellfire. Illa wahida, except for one. And when he was asked, what is this one safe sect? What is it? Ma hiya ya Rasulullah? Which is the one that will make it to Jannah that we save from the hellfire? The Prophet ﷺ said, Man kana ala mithli ma ana alayhi wa ashabi. It is the one who is upon what I'm upon and my companions. He mentioned all of them there. So you bring the two ahadiths together, you find the path of the Prophet, and not just Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. All of the companions is the path of the Prophet ﷺ. Does that make sense? And the Prophet said, عَدُّ عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. The Prophet said, hold on to it with your molar teeth. Why did he say molar? Every word, I want you to see, wallahi, the power of the Prophet's statement. Nothing was said frivolously or superfluously. Everything was said with reason. He said, hold on to the Prophet's sunnah and his companion sunnah with your molar teeth. Why? Because the molar teeth are the ones that you grip something with. If you bite some bread and you hold it into your two front teeth, or you take a cloth and you bite onto it with your front teeth, I'll pull the cloth, I might even pull your tooth out with it. Does that make sense? Like, and if you grab a cloth and you put it on your molar teeth, these ones in the back here, you can tug and pull all you want. It's not coming out. Because that grip is hard. The Prophet is saying, grip, hold on to it, don't let go of it. And just so you know how important it is to hold on, the Prophet ﷺ said in another narration, which you are, I'm sure, are all very well aware of, the Prophet ﷺ said, a time will come where holding on to this deen, and the Prophet's sunnah is his deen. The Prophet's sunnah is the deen. Holding on to this deen will be like holding on to hot coal. But you've got to hold on to it, and you've got to not only hold on to it, you've got to hold on to it with your molar teeth. You've got to take that coal, you've got to bite it in your molar teeth, you've got to hold and not let go. Because what? The majority of people are in what? Opposition to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam sunnah. I forgot to mention something. Before the Prophet mentioned, hold on to my sunnah, he said, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. The Prophet said, if you live after me, you're going to see a lot of disputes. So the Prophet telling you hold on to the sunnah is in the context of disputes. The people say, oh, the Muslims are divided and everyone believes something different and there's so many different sects and groups. The Prophet said, if you live, you're going to see a lot of this. He said, in that context, when you see it, is that a problem? Is this unity amongst the Muslims a problem? So the Prophet straight away mentioned the problem, he told you the solution. He said, hold on to my sunnah, the sunnah of my companions. Now every act of worship, everything you want to do, ask yourself, number one, this should be your checklist. Did the Prophet do it? Did his companions do it? The companions were the Salaf as-Salih. The companions were the Salaf as-Salih. They were the Salaf. When we say Salaf, that's who we mean. And the students, the companions, their students. Because there's another hadith that mentions all three generations. The point here is that you want to follow the Prophet and the Salaf. Does that make sense? And that's how you know what you're doing is upon guidance. A person says, I want to celebrate the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's birthday. We say, Akhi, did Abu Bakr celebrate it? Did Umar celebrate it? Did Uthman celebrate it? Did Ali celebrate it? Did Aisha celebrate it? Did Salama celebrate it? Ibn Abbas celebrate it? Tell me one from the companions celebrated it. And if you don't have even one, then this is something, if you persist and insist on doing it, knowing that the companions did not do it, and this is something that what? This is an opposition to the Sunnah. And it can take you out of Ahlul Sunnah, potentially, and put you into one of the sects that will go into the hellfire. People want to protest. They think protesting will help and aid the Muslims. Did the Prophet ever protest? Did the concept of protesting exist in the time of the companions? It did. Because the Khawarij came and protested outside Uthman's house, and then they killed him after that protest. So the companions knew what protesting was. It existed. Did they do it? No. So is it from the Prophet and his companions' sunnah to protest? Rather, how did they deal with oppression? How did they deal with tyranny? Study the sunnah and the seerah, and you'll see. And you'll have the answers. But they never protested. So you have to ask yourself, what was the tariqah? What was the way of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ? That's the sunnah. Does that make sense? So that was the third advice. Hold on to the sunnah, and the sunnah here means the Prophet's path and his companions. And the last thing the Prophet ﷺ told you was, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ. The Prophet ﷺ told you, stay away from the newly invented matters. فَإِنَّ كُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. Because every single misguidance, every single bid'ah, every single newly invented matter is a misguidance. Does that make sense? Now here we have to stop. If the Prophet's sunnah is his sunnah, then the opposite of his sunnah is bid'ah. Is to do something the Prophet ﷺ didn't do. Does that make sense? Bid'ah is not something we can do because Allah told us, الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. Allah said, on this day I completed your religion. I completed it. So if something's complete, can you add to it? If you add to it, it's because you're saying it's not completed. Allah, you missed something out. I found something you missed, Ya Allah. Here, add it. Add the Prophet's birthday. Allah, you missed this. I'm adding it here for you. وَلِيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. Does that make sense? People say bid'ah hasana. What bid'ah hasana? What bid'ah hasana? If there's anything hasan, anything good, they say good bid'ah. If there's anything good, the Prophet told us. The Prophet told us in another hadith. And there was no khair for my ummah except I told them. And there was no evil for them that I knew that I told them. So if you say there's a bid'ah hasana, there's a new good bid'ah, there's a good thing that you can bring to a religion, then what? You're saying that, number one, the Prophet lied. Because the Prophet said, I told you, every good that I knew of you, I told you. Every good that I knew for you, I told you. Hadith Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, the Prophet said, I told you. So now you're saying he lied. And then you're saying Allah lied, because Allah said, أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. I completed your religion. You can't add anything good to completion. If something's complete, what happens? If you add to it, you're only making it worse. Does that make sense? Like when you bake a cake, you put the right amount of sugar in there, right? You've completed it. If you put too much sugar, you make the cake, when it's too sweet, the cake tastes worse. Sometimes adding to something can actually make it destroyed, can make it worse. Does that make sense? So you cannot challenge Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by opposing his sunnah in this way. Does that make sense? And not just that, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in another narration, وَشَرُّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا. The most evil, and you hear it every Friday on the minbar, right? The greatest, the Prophet said, shar is what? Is on the ala wazni af'al, which is, sighatul mubalagha. صيغة التفضيل. This is the superlative form, okay? التفضيل, where what? The Prophet is saying that there is not, when he says شر الأمور محدثاتها, the greatest evil, there is nothing more evil than this, is bid'ah, the newly invented matter. Bid'ah is the greatest evil. You will say, what about shirk? Shirk is a type of bid'ah. What is bid'ah? Bid'ah is to invent something new in the religion. It's to invent something new in the religion. Shirk is, you're inventing ibadah, you're putting ibadah, you're worshipping someone else besides Allah. That's inventing something new in your religion. The Christians started to do shirk because they done bid'ah. Then worshipping Isa alayhi salam was bid'ah. So now you know the bid'ah is of two types. There's the bid'ah mukaffara and the bid'ah mufassaqa. There's the bid'ah which is kufr, which is like the bid'ah of the Shia. And what? The Barelvi and so on and so forth. And there's the bid'ah of what? The innovators. Okay? Pay attention. Bid'ah is so bad that it's worse than a major sin. You know why? Because at least the person who's in the club, he knows what he's doing is wrong. Like in a person who's doing bid'ah, he will never repent because he thinks what he's doing is right. He thinks, I'm getting close to Allah through this. He believes Allah will reward me for this. And it's not reward. Rather, it's opposition of the Prophet ﷺ in his greatest form. You think you know better. Does that make sense? And it's a fitna for the heart. A man came to Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala and he said, I'm going to do ihram from the Prophet's masjid. The Prophet would wear the ihram from outside of Medina, right? Dhul Hulayfa is the place. He would make his ihram from there when he would go for Hajj. The man said, I'm going to do my ihram from the masjid, meaning I'm going to go in, I'm going to make it harder for myself. Imam Ahmad said, I fear for you fitna. He said, أي فتنة هذه? Which fitna is this that you're talking about? Which fitna? What fitna? Khutawat. It's just steps. I'm just going to do a few extra steps. He said, Imam Malik said, what fitna is greater than you? That the fact that you think you came with something that the Prophet didn't come with already. You came with some good that the Prophet didn't already teach you. And then he recited the ayah, فَلْيَحْذِرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ. Be warned of opposing the Prophet in his affairs. Lest that it hit you a fitna. It will hit them fitna. Imam Ahmad said this fitna is apostasy. That you will leave Islam, you will become a kafir in your heart. Opposing the Prophet will cause you to become a kafir. You know why? Because look, how does a person leave Islam? By completely defying the Prophet ﷺ. So by opposing the Prophet in one thing, what have you done? You've started your journey towards opposing the Prophet ﷺ. Just carry on opposing him and you'll eventually leave Islam. Eventually your opposition will take you to kufr. So, stay away. That's why Shaykh Salih Fawzan said, stay away from even the small bid'ah, the tiny bid'ah. Don't underestimate it. You know why? Because it was a single spark that burnt down the entire forest. It was a single spark that started the fire that burnt down the entire forest. So stay away from small bid'ah. Does that make sense? So these are the 4 advices of the Prophet ﷺ in his farewell advices. Number 1, taqwa. Number 2, hear and obey the ruler. Number 3, hold firm to the path of the Salaf al-Salih, which is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And number 4, stay away from bid'ah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Brothers, forgive me, I've got to run out. So I'd love to talk and say salam to everyone, but I've got a family member in hospital that I've got to go visit. So inshallah, I'll see you next week. We're supposed to start the journey of the Hereafter series, going through death and whatnot. We're going to start that from next Friday, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah? So I'll see you all, if you're available, Monday for the 9 Times of Allah class, and Friday I'll see you, inshallah ta'ala, what? For the Hereafter series. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question for you. From all of my videos online that you might have seen, which one has been the most life-changing one for you so far? Many people told me that it was the video when we gave da'wah outside the Shisha Cafe. And I'll leave you with this. The Prophet ﷺ said, a time will come when holding on to my religion, holding on to Islam, will become as difficult as holding on to charcoal. The charcoals that we smoke shisha with. The Prophet said, try and hold on to it. It burns you, let go of it. The Prophet ﷺ said, that's what my religion will become like. Is it not like that today? Or perhaps you're from those who said it was that lecture that everyone was asking about, the one I did on the issue of death. Send me back.
please send me back. I'll pray this time. I'll dump that girl this time. I won't play around with the girls no more. No more cigarettes, no more weed, no more watching things online, no more talking to the guys, no more music, no more disrespecting my parents. I will pray. Allah, please send me back. Tell these angels, hold me down for a second. Send me back, just 2 minutes, send me back. Oh, let me die with my head on the ground in sajda. Let me die, but Allah said, no, you will not be able to return. They will scream, Rabbi irji'uni. Send me back, my master, please. Or maybe it was one of the other 1,000 plus videos that we have online. Whatever it was, I want to ask you a follow-up question. And that is, I want you to remember and recall what life was like before you saw that video, when you were distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when you're thinking of that and remembering that, I want you to be aware that there are many brothers and sisters who are still living life like that, far and distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They still haven't seen that one video that's going to help change their life. They haven't seen that one reminder that's going to touch them and bring them out from the darkness of sin to the brightness and the light and the happiness of guidance. But that doesn't mean that there isn't hope for them. They just need to come in contact with that kind of content online. And that's why myself and my team are dedicating the next 3 months, inshallah ta'ala, to flooding the internet with as much content on Tawheed and Sunnah and reminders about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as possible. But the issue is that in order for us to reach those targets, we're limited in terms of the resources that we have. We need to hire more people in our media team. We need to also buy new equipment. Now look, I am going to ask you to support this financially, but I'm not going to ask you for crazy numbers. For us, we don't need that kind of money. We need little money because we have a team that really believes in this. And the proof is in the pudding. If you see what we've done over the last summer, subhanAllah, you can see that the work, it gets done. That money goes where it deserves to be placed. So I'm going to ask you, inshallah ta'ala, because you're a person who's benefited from this YouTube channel. You're a person who's benefited from my video. I want you to be able to give the gift of that video that helped change your life to someone else by donating at the link below. And remember, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, none of you will truly believe until you love for your brother, by extension your sister, what you love for yourself, and what you love here for them is what guidance, the way you love it for yourself. So please, inshallah ta'ala, give it the link below and let's flood the internet with La ilaha illallah.